A video recently went viral, mainly because everybody took it seriously.
Well, I mean, it's pretty simple actually. Hey?
Kiss.
Wasn't so hard.
The internet is convinced that this man is either holding this woman hostage, that she's either just with him for a green card, or that this is explicitly for social media clout. So I did a little bit of digging because I was like, nah. I've seen this couple before. I saw them a few months ago on a truly mini documentary, and they seemed like a genuinely happy, authentic couple. Had something changed? Had the wife, Divine, been exposed as a complete and utter fraud? No, they were just discovered by the manosphere and friends in the past few weeks. So they're blowing up. I see this so much on the internet that people will see 30 seconds of a curated TikTok or Instagram story and will deem themselves to be authorities on the entirety of a relationship. 30 seconds, yep, that's completely enough. That is enough for me to literally hone into my Columbo-esque skills and to deem this relationship, to deem these people, to deem these celebrities, yay or nay. Because obviously this woman is just with this man because she wants a green card. It isn't that they've been together for 6 years, that they've been living together in the United States and have been married to each other for well over a year and a half, that she makes more money than him, that she is a famous TikTok and social media star in her own right, or the basis of the psychology of attraction and attractiveness, which is so specific to individual people that it really can't just be applied as a universal criteria to each and every individual, as we try to do online, as the manosphere tries to do incessantly, and to the detriment of so many young men and women. I think us in the West are becoming, firstly, very superficial in turning our personal relationships into a kind of consumer experience. What I mean by this is, take for instance this bottle or this carton of juice. I know nothing about it except from face value. I look at it and I see that this is orange and mango juice, never found concentrate, high in vitamin C. That is all I know about this, and I buy it. I don't know where this has actually come from. I don't know the entire process in making this. If I actually had a real look on the back and like read everything, which I'm obviously not going to do because who has time for that shit, I will find out that this is actually packed with sugar, like so much sugar. Basically, all I have is the label, all I have is that information, and that is universal information that everybody has access to. But as soon as I drink it, I may realize that actually I don't like this juice tastes pretty disgusting. Yeah, somebody else will see this juice and they'll drink it and they'll think that it's fantastic. And so we're buying the same product, or we're seeing the same product, we're basing our like incentive to get it or not to get it on the same criteria which we see, just like, you know, the colors of the carton, and so we buy it. But at the end of the day, we're both going to have a very different experience, or all of us are going to have a very different experience with the juice and whether we like it or not. Basically, that long little example just is how I think about attraction in our day and age, except that instead of appreciating that, yes, we can all see the same carton, or we can all see the same man on the internet or the same couple online, we're all going to have different responses to them, all going to have different reactions to them. And no reaction is superior to another, because there's no standard of what makes somebody attractive or unattractive that everybody is going to wholeheartedly agree on and understand. I'm not going to understand why Jane down the road is not going to like this carton of juice, but I love it. I don't know why she doesn't like it, because I think it's absolutely fantastic, banging juice, but she's not going to like it, and that's okay. But I think this is truly ruining our relationships with other people and the potential for us to actually really find compatible, meaningful relationships with people, because we are so fixated on the seeming fake universal truths about attraction, about the evolution of attraction. We are so invested in psychology, and I like to call it more so pop pop psychology, evolutionary psychology about attraction, about how men work, how women work, and how you can attract a woman with having this much money, or deeming yourself to be, or showing yourself to be a resourceful male or individual, etc., etc., etc. We all know the entire mantra of evolutionary psychology and what women find attractive and what men find attractive. And I think, yes, there is definitely a place for all of this. There is a place for these explanations, generally, foundationally, about how humans work. But I think we need to appreciate that, firstly, we're in society, which means that sort of the rules and regulations of the natural world hardly ever apply universally, or hardly ever apply in the way that would be deemed expected, or hardly ever apply in a causal effect relationship universally. And secondly, everybody within society has their own situation and personal history, which means that things that may seem straightforward to the average human being who has a pretty standard personal history, living and growing up in a nuclear family with mom and dad, growing up in a homogenous community or whatever, will not in any way apply to everybody. And so people will grow up among different communities with different forms of exposure, with different situations that will inform who they deem to be attractive when they grow up, what kind of people they look for or are drawn to, etc. Nobody's history is the same. And I think something that we really fall into, especially online and as Westerners online, is this idea that because we see everything in the way that we see it and through the lens of perspective and situationships that we see, therefore everybody else in the world inevitably has to see things the same way that we see things. And I think the way that the internet has responded to this couple is a very interesting instance of that. If he got money, then get him to a dentist and give him a makeover. I don't know, she's probably in it for the green card, but I watch their TikToks and they do seem genuinely happy. They seem happy, but you're so convinced that because this just doesn't make sense to you, that therefore she must be in it for the green card. Probably just about a green card. I want a hidden camera reality television show for them. I want to know what the hell is going on. Citizenship. Her face told me everything I needed to know. Run, girl. Nah, this ain't right. Not sitting right in my spirit. Her outfit is such a slay too. Dude has to realize it is for either the card or he's got money. Possibly both. Definitely giving 90 Day Fiancé vibes. Like she just needed an out and he was it. Disgusting, and I hope she figures how to get rid of him. Nah, she hates it there. She has to be a hostage. She gotta really hate her own kind or really need something out of that man. Y'all, she pulled away. Talk about a face only a mother could love. Everything about that screams mail order. So a little backstory on this couple based on my research, based on watching their little mini documentary that they did with Truly a few months ago. Divine is from the Philippines and Scott is from the US. And Divine worked in a call center and she was on the phone to a man called Scott Smith. Not this Scott Smith, mind you, a different Scott Smith. And basically everybody on the phone was always very mean to her, very cruel to her. She really didn't like her job. She really didn't like interacting with fussy American customers who just blamed her for everything. Something that I want to return back to just in terms of cultural differences and just how this really emphasizes all of this. And so she found this Scott Smith on Facebook, not realizing that it wasn't the Scott Smith who she'd actually been speaking to on the phone, who had actually been a very nice customer. Fortuitously, this Scott Smith ended up being just as nice as the Scott Smith that she had been speaking with on the phone. And they became mutuals on Facebook and started talking for a few years. After a few years, they actually started a long distance relationship. I think this is just testament to the power of just being nice to someone. I think in this world, and I can say from personal experience, people just, the general public, especially in consumer relationships, are just not nice at all. And I think this is why it just pains me that we have brought the same kind of mindset into our personal relationships or into seeking out personal relationships. I'm sure we can all pay tribute to the fact that being on dating apps is a horrible experience. Even if you are inundated with attention, you know that it's just because of your looks. And if you aren't, you know that it's just because of your looks. People don't actually care about you. to is really just a horrible experience for the vast majority of people. That is the vast majority of people who end up being on dating apps for the longest amount of time. And the fact that Scott Smith was nice to Divine really speaks to the power and the attractiveness that comes in people being nice. And this is something that I see so much on the internet, especially among the involuntarily celibate community. Online, they are just so horrible. And I mean not like horrible directly to people, but it's just, you just get from what they say and the things that they say and how they say things that they just are not nice people to talk to. And it is so off-putting and so unattractive to speak to men, to speak to women like that. Even if they are incredibly attractive, it makes absolutely no difference. It is so off-putting. It's repulsive to a lot of people. And I think this is something that speaks really to why Divine found Scott Smith so attractive, because he was just such a nice guy. And I mean genuine nice guy, not in the sort of colloquial sort of term of the nice guy, which you see everywhere online, sadly. They were in a long distance relationship for 4 years. And in that time, Scott came to visit Divine in the Philippines 6 times in total. And this is quite significant because Scott actually suffers from an immunodeficiency disease. Since he was a child, he has suffered from scleroderma. He missed a lot of school. He hardly ever went to school as a teenager. And because of that, he hardly made any friends. He was very isolated, very antisocial, and actually just couldn't go out there. And I think it is just such testament to his character that, defying all odds, as soon as he got better, as soon as he was able to start going out and doing things, he actually did that. He didn't just sit online on incel forums complaining about the world, complaining about women, how nobody finds him attractive, even though relative to incels, who are actually, a lot of them actually have health on their side, he didn't. He decided to go out, he got a job, he interacted in the world, he went out with his family, he made friends, he immersed himself in culture, and he actually built up his confidence and tried his best to build up his confidence and to find relationships with people. And ironically, it wasn't him who actually hit up Divine on Facebook. She actually contacted him. He was a bit skeptical at first, but after she'd explained things and they'd sort of established that it was a misunderstanding and that he wasn't actually the Scott Smith who'd spoken to her on the call center line or landline, they actually started talking and actually developed feelings for each other and a relationship. Based on my research, she broke up with him at one point because he was meant to come to the Philippines to visit her, but he couldn't because of a hurricane, I believe, in Texas, a rather significant hurricane. I can't remember the name exactly. I'll just put it on screen. But he couldn't go to the Philippines and they broke up or had a big fight and argument and split up for a while. But then she actually found out that it wasn't just an excuse on his part not to visit her, but that it had actually genuinely wiped out his entire livelihood. His home was destroyed, his car was destroyed, and so he had to wait a few months to save enough money to go and see her again. He wasn't just making up an elaborate excuse not to see her. So why I say all this is because I think it just resembles the normal ups and downs of any relationship and the trials of a long distance relationship, which is why obviously they would want to live together. And just viably, her moving to the United States to be with her husband is more of a thing. I personally have no ties to the US or no burning, yearning desire to move to the US. But if I met somebody in the United States and we got on and we fell in love and we wanted to be together, I'd probably move to the United States, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. It just makes sense. Unless they had a burning desire to move to the UK, then by all means come here. But I really don't have an allegiance to any country, so by all means. So what I found most interesting about the internet's response to Scott Smith is that they didn't actually do any research or looked into their relationship or their TikTok whatsoever, because it's very obvious that they troll people based on the plethora of criticism and hate that they get. Every single one of their TikToks at this point is them trolling, is them just responding to trolls who say that they're not together for anything other than the green card, card, or that he is so ugly there's absolutely no way that she could even bear to be in the same room as him, let alone kiss him. And so they parody this and make rather humorous content about it.
I think I'm pretty damn good looking. No, not rich.
You said you have a lot of money.
Don't worry, babe, I got you covered.
There's nothing to dig.
Not even an ounce. Get ready with me to divorce my wife. Wait, chill. I'm just kidding, okay? I don't know how many times I have to say this, but there's no hostage situation here. We're just two people that just love each other, man. Like, what's so wrong with that?
What is fantastic is that the internet has taken this seriously and believes that this is actually genuine and real. Rather than going to the source and looking into it themselves and then making a judgment, they've just gone full guns blazing. And I think that this is a very good instance of why Scott and Divine are probably the perfect example of a couple who are together for the long term, and that they are basing their relationship on it being a long-term partnership as opposed to just a partnership. What I mean by this is that I think that we, especially now, are quite terrible at relationships. And I don't mean this in a scolding way. I do think that this is because our modern society hasn't prepared us for relationships, especially not for relationships in which women are no longer dependent financially or entirely financially on men. Modern men have not adjusted terribly well or harmoniously to this change. And I think modern women are not as empathetic to sort of the rapid change of modern society in how it's affected men and how it's obviously and inevitably affecting women. And we have, as a result, polarized ourselves from each other when we actually need each other more than ever in order to navigate this rather precarious landscape we all find ourselves in. It's so sad how we just don't understand each other whatsoever. And instead of coming together to try and figure out what is wrong, how we can improve on things, we're just trying to play either the victimhood Olympics, or we just don't have time for the other side at all, yet somehow expect them to understand where we are coming from. I see this with incels all the time. I see this with radical feminists, with all kinds of feminists all the time. I see this with blue-pilled men all the time. None of us really understand each other. And I think in all of that, we really don't understand ourselves or what is best for us. And I think a really good example of this, of us not understanding ourselves and what is best for us, is physical attractiveness. Physical attraction is like the lowest common denominator that we have. It feeds directly into our modern obsession with evolutionary psychology and using evolutionary psychology to explain and justify everything, from men being unfaithful to women being entitled and picky in relationships. When we see two conventionally physically attractive people with each other, we think, oh, that makes perfect sense. And because celebrities are the most obvious example of this and are the ones who we see the most, we think, oh, that makes perfect sense. And then on the other hand, we wonder why they get divorced all the time. I mean, why would Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt get a divorce when they're both two beautiful, successful people? They are a looks match through and through. Why would their relationship not work? Why would none of the Kardashians' relationships work out for the long term? Why does the hot, beautiful, sexy girl and the hot, beautiful, sexy guy, who seemingly should obviously work because they're both hot, beautiful, and sexy, why are they not together? Why are they getting a divorce? Why are they breaking up? And that's because relationships based on looks and based on just what is sexual, ultimately what is about sex and the lowest common denominator of any relationship, is just not going to succeed at all. I don't think the consumers of manosphere content, I don't think the consumers of red pill content actually appreciate enough that for the vast majority of your life, you are not going to be having sex. You are not going to be raising children. That is going to be a total of about 25 years of your life if you have multiple children. And importantly, for the vast majority of your life, you are not going to be a primary customer and consumer in the sexual marketplace and domain. And so what are you going to do for the rest of your life, for about 80% of your time and your life with somebody who is not going to be looking like they looked in their 20s and their 30s, who is not going to be pumping out children for you or impregnating you, who is going to spend the majority of their time with you, not all made up, not smelling like a bottle of cologne, not lifting weights at the gym, and not publicizing their entire life on social media. Even if you are social media personalities, that is literally a percentage of your day. What are you going to do with the 99% of your day and your life together? And I think that is the territory which we are not prepared for, which the red pill does not prepare men for, which feminism doesn't prepare women for, which society, modern society, doesn't prepare any of us for. The realities of being compatible with another human being. And if you're going to base compatibility on appearances and on the physical, on those things which our society values more than anything else, you are doomed from the start. And that's why I say that we are not good at modern relationships. Not So Erudite, who is a very good friend of mine, speaks amazingly about all of this. So I'd highly recommend going to her channel and watching her videos and her live streams, because she really has such great knowledge on a lot of this and on speaking about how modern relationships don't work and why they don't work so well, both from her professional experience and her personal experience. If you actually look at people in the real world who are in relationships, and I mean specifically people who are a bit older, who are not sort of the creme de la creme of, say, looks in our modern social media age, people who are just human beings living their everyday life, you will see that there are people of all different shapes and sizes who are together, who I would never in a million years imagine being in a relationship. And it works, and they are compatible. And their men don't look at me because I'm a young sweet thing. They're not interested because they found their person. They found somebody who they are compatible with, who they have decided to make a lifelong commitment to. And it's a beautiful thing to see, and it's an amazing thing to see, because I can just imagine the hard work, the effort, the compromises that have had to go into making that relationship meaningful, and that relationship the best relationship that it can be for those two people. And I think Divine and Scott are a really good example of this from what I can see on social media. They haven't, importantly, let social media undermine their relationship and the importance of their relationship. And I think that's really the foundation of what can make relationships successful. I think too much of our value and worth is based on what other people think of us, especially other people on dating apps, especially other people on social media. I think when on dating apps, you are not getting any attention from anyone, that makes you feel undesirable and unattractive. And boy, do I know that feeling. When in life you get rejected by all the people that you pursue, that makes you feel undesirable and unattractive and like you are worthless. And then we embody that and we project that into the world and onto others. And that is incredibly unattractive. It's this really vicious, self-fulfilling prophecy. And what Scott and Divine seem to have done very successfully is put that all to one side. And they're making quite good profit off of that. Responding to haters with trolling videos, with clickbaity titles, etc. And hats off to them. I think that is a very, very clever business tactic. All in all, we really do need to project ourselves far further into the future in terms of our life with another human being who is not going to look like this for the rest of their life. A person who we're going to get used to. A person who we are not going to want to have sex with as ferociously and as excitingly as we did in the first few years of our relationship. And that's okay. That is really okay. The longer a couple knows each other, the less important physical attractiveness becomes for maintaining a long-term relationship. And this inflated emphasis on looks seems to really be gatekeeping us from finding partners who we would be happier with and more compatible with in the long term. And this is something that we see on social media, especially with couples who look incredibly good together because they're both, as I said, hot, sexy young things, and their whole relationship is online, and it's all about being online together and looking hot and beautiful and aspirational for everybody else who doesn't look like them. But 9 times out of 10, they end up breaking up. They don't end up being together. Or stuff is happening behind the scenes that we are not privy to. Another thing that Scott emphasized in his finding of divine and in relationships was patience. The importance of patience in finally ending up with your long-term partner. And this is something that now, I would say, just based on experience and based on being a young person myself, young people are so urgent and so impatient. We have absolutely no patience or grace for the fact that our lives do not need to be figured out. Our love lives and our understanding of what constitutes a successful relationship does not need to be figured out universally, cut through it by the age of 25. Young men are so impatient for relationships that just because it hasn't worked out for them by the age of 30, they decide to go their own way. Young women decide that because they haven't found a man who meets all their criteria and checks all the boxes by a certain age, that therefore there will be no such man, and that they will therefore be an independent woman for the rest of their lives. And of course, this is absolutely fine for a lot of women, but I think we also just really undermine our potential as individuals, as ever-changing, flourishing individuals, when we close ourselves off to experiences, when we close ourselves off to other individuals, when we close ourselves off completely to the opposite sex, because we don't appreciate that we are not stagnant in time. I think online it's very easy to fall into this trap of, if you or I don't find somebody attractive, don't think that somebody is sexually appealing, therefore nobody else can. I'm not gonna lie, I think Meryl Streep at age 74 is the most attractive, most good-looking woman I have ever seen. It isn't cope, it isn't delusion, it isn't fake, it just is. And that's what attraction is. It just is. It can't be explained. It's incredibly chemical, incredibly emotive. It does not make any rational sense. It just is. It's entirely personal, psychological, and situational. And everyone is different. And it's also interesting because people think that if you look a certain way, therefore you're going to be attracted to other people who look like you. And I think that this is obviously something that makes sense with regards to, say, for instance, race. If you grow up among your own racial group, if you are immersed in your own race and your own culture, you're going to be attracted to people who look like you. But I think we rarely forget about personal history in all of this. I, for instance, grew up surrounded by 99.9% white people. It isn't a preference in as much as it is situationally and personally based. I've gone out with many black men, I've gone out with many black women, and it hasn't worked out all the time. Sometimes it's worked out, sometimes it hasn't. Last guy I went out with was a black man and he ghosted me, so, you know. But I also think we sometimes forget that because we look a certain way, it doesn't mean that we're going to be attracted to people who look just like us. I, for instance, am very slim, very toned. I go to the gym almost every day. I care a lot about being slim. But I have never found myself attracted to somebody who has been as slim as me or goes to the gym. I've always found myself, especially with women, attracted to women who don't go to the gym. Women who are quite happy just being their natural, beautiful selves. Even though for me, personally, that's not what I like. I'm very paranoid about my weight and how I look. It isn't something that I'm attracted to in other people. Why? I have no idea. I cannot even begin to try and rationalize it. It just is. And that's attraction. And I think with Divine, it just is. She's attracted to Scott Smith because of many a quality which he possesses beyond that of how he looks, and alongside that of how he looks. And that's how human beings work. This is going to be controversial, but I'm going to say it because I think it is important. A lot of Americans online overestimate how desirable it is for foreigners to live in America. I'm going to get cancelled, aren't I? The world is starting to realize, and I think has realized for a very long time, that America in the media versus America in real life are two completely different stories, narratives, and just realities. 710 million people want to move to another country permanently. That may sound like a lot, but it is actually only 14% of the entire global population. And yes, 1 in 5 migrants do want to immigrate to the United States, but that is also only 21% of all migrants. A country's popularity is very much dependent on how welcoming that country is to foreigners. And in the past few years, America has most definitely not been as welcoming, and that has definitely decreased its popularity insofar as immigration is concerned. For instance, Germany leapt in popularity after former Chancellor Angela Merkel announced that there would be no limit on the number of refugees Germany would accept. A country's image matters a lot. America, for instance, until very recent history, has been known as the land of opportunity, the land of the free, a country built and made by immigrants. And so that definitely plays into the appeal and popularity. In our globalized world, it just makes sense that people want to move to places, want to go abroad, want to live permanently, make more money, find better opportunities for themselves and their families. It isn't that there's anything inherently specific or important or exceptional about America relative to other countries. It is basically about globalization and image. And so this idea of the green card frustrates me, and I'm sure frustrates so many other people considerably. It is so annoying and so closed off from the realities of the world and how the world thinks. I think online, just because of how the internet is, in which it is America dominated, there is this perception that the world is America and that America is the world. And therefore, when people think or voice opinions that are not the consensus in the United States, it's deemed wrong by default, when it's purely different. Somebody moving to the United States for love is not seen as somebody moving to be with the person that they love. It's seen as somebody just wanting a green card. I think it is just so arrogant to perceive one's country and the title of American or German or British as so significant that you can't possibly fathom that anybody would just want to move to a country because they've met somebody who lives in that country, wants to start a life with them and just wants to be with them, irrespective of where they're going to be. And that country is just the most viable place, is the best place for them to be together, for their future together, and for the vision of the future that they have with each other and their family. The fact of the matter is that the United States, like every single Western European country, needs immigrants far more than immigrants need the United States or any other Western country, especially as our populations are aging considerably, especially as young people are not having as many children as previous generations, especially as industry and commerce moves to other less economically advanced countries, especially as there is a skills deficit in Western countries. Slow economic growth and high inflation are all offset by immigration. I mean, the US military is now giving citizenship to foreign recruits as a form of incentive because they can't fill quotas in the United States and with US troops themselves. Basically, when it comes to Divine and Scott, there are far easier ways for her to get a green card. Why would she have invested over 6 years of her life in this relationship when physically she is a very beautiful young woman? She could easily find somebody else who would want to be with her, as Twitter has made known. She's also got a considerable social media following. She could have divorced him as soon as that popped off and gone on with her life in whatever direction everybody thinks her life should go. But of course she's not going to do that because she moved to America to be with Scott, not to be in America. There's a difference, and I think we just don't give enough credit to that difference. We don't give enough credit to how human beings actually work, where it's not all about advancing socioeconomically, where it's not all about getting as much as you can from people people without actually caring and loving people like we would our family, because Scott is Divine's family. But yes, this rhetoric about a green card, which I hear so much online especially, and with particularly passport bros, is just so insulting to non-Americans and so insulting to the rest of the world insofar as how we actually think. We're not stupid. People who don't live in the US aren't stupid and don't miss any of this rhetoric that is going on about, for instance, young American men traveling abroad to try and pick up poor, impoverished brown girls to seduce with their money and the prospect of the promised land of America. Honestly, we're not that blind, and I think testament in that is shown by the fact that you do not see incels posting pictures of themselves left, right and center with their new brown wife who is submissive and willing to cater to his every whim. The only time you see that is when said man pays for young woman to pose around him and to look beautiful. That is not a lifestyle based in any form of reality for the vast, and I mean vast, majority of the human population. I think instead of not introspecting and looking at ourselves and how we do relationships, how we interact with people, we should try to do better in our situations. You're not going to find happiness by just flying abroad. You're going to find happiness by putting effort into a relationship. Like Scott and Divine put considerable effort into their relationship whilst they were long distance. And now that relationship didn't happen overnight, and neither will any of our relationships. So yes, I just thought that Scott and Divine were a very good example of a couple that I look up to insofar as what their journey has been and what it means for them, and sort of gives me something to think about insofar as being patient, being gracious, being understanding of other people and where they're coming from, and also not placing as much significance on looks. But please let me know what you think in the comment section. Please comment for engagement. As I have said, the algorithm is not my friend at the moment, and I would like to get into her good books. Clearly my attractiveness does not work for the algorithm, like it doesn't for anything else in life really. Yes, it may make things a little easier for a lot of people, but at the end of the day, it's the substance that matters. So if you like what I'm doing and you like my work, please support me in that way. I'd really, really appreciate it. And I will see all of you very soon in the next one.